just a sneak peek of what's to come on today's episode of Circle Back.
I think they got screwed on all three deals. The Barstool, the ESPN, and acquiring all the Score Mobile stuff. That was crap.
I think the single worst thing that can happen to bettors is consolidation in the market.
I mean, if you were a heavy investor, just absolute disaster in this company.
Different books offering different products, allowing more opportunities that are mispriced.
I'm just looking at this man, we are all morons for not starting a sweepstakes casino, right?
Disclaimer. The content presented in this show is intended for entertainment purposes only. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of any individuals or organizations mentioned. Statements made about public figures or entities are based on publicly available information and are not intended to harm or defame any person or business. This show relies on fair use of social media posts, which are presented in good faith for the purpose of commentary and criticism. Viewers and listeners are advised to form their own opinions. Circle Back here on the Circles Off channel. It's part of the Hammer Betting Network and presented by Kalshi. This is the show where we go through the latest and greatest content that comes from gambling Twitter, maybe sports Twitter as a whole, with some of the topics that we have on the show today. As a reminder, make sure you're subscribed to the Circles Off channel. If you enjoy what you see today and want to see more content just like it, this is the Hammer Betting Network's educational, lifestyle, entertainment content division, and drop a like along the way as well if you do find yourself enjoying. Here is the cast for today. I am your host here on Circle Back. My name is Jacob Gramegna. I am a producer and creator as well for the Hammer Betting Network. In the bottom left corner of the screen, we have Mike, aka Mr. Peanutbettor, professional sports bettor. In the bottom right corner of the screen, we have co-host on the Hit the Books channel, which is the Hammer Betting Network's NCAA football content division. That is Joey Knish. And in the top right corner, we have joining us today as the fourth, Storm Pig. Storm, how you doing today? Thanks so much for joining us.
Not too bad. I'm having some mic issues, so if I sound like I'm in a fishbowl, I apologize to everybody listening.
Well, anyone who's familiar with the Hammer and the network has dealt with many very bad Knish mic performances, so I think I think we'll be okay for today, and I think we'll be able to soldier on for this one. But we'll jump into things here. You may have seen from the title and thumbnail, a lot of focus today on ESPN, and things have not been going well for ESPN in the last week or so. We have breaking news that came from many sources, but we have the tweet here from Joe Pompliano, who said, breaking, ESPN and Penn Entertainment are ending their sports betting partnership after signing a 10-year, $2 billion deal in 2023. ESPN Bet will officially shut down next month with 8 years left of the initial agreement. Ryan Butler, who provided a lot of the updates on the sports betting industry, says that ESPN was a massive revenue loser that could never compete with DraftKings or FanDuel. And for Disney, the cash payments that Penn gave to use the ESPN brand were a boost, but the scrutiny lending its name to a sports book means ditching ESPN Bet is a net positive, and the gambling scandal associated that ESPN as a whole is covering did not help things as well. Jared Smith said that Penn lost $1 billion in 2 years partnering with ESPN Bet per their earnings report today. And the biggest winner today is Stool Presidente, which is Dave Portnoy, who did purchase back the rights for Penn Entertainment. Further down, we have Taylor Cabby, who talked about essentially this being further evidence that even with A+ brand recognition, people are finding it very, very difficult to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel in the sportsbook market in the U.S. And finally, more from Ryan Butler, talk on DraftKings now becoming the exclusive official sportsbook and odds provider of ESPN, which was announced shortly after this happened. And ESPN Bet is not going to go away completely. If you do have an account there, it will now morph into the Score Bet, which if you are in Canada like myself, you are already familiar with. Okay, lot to decipher. I brought up a lot of stuff already, but Knish, I wanted to start with you on this one. Maybe you want to rain down a little bit harder on ESPN. Give us your thoughts on everything that's going on here.
I mean, I don't want to tell on ESPN. I think this is a Penn Gaming. I mean, they're making Jason Robbins look like Norm Rockefeller or something with these moves here where you pay Portnoy a bunch of money, then you give him his company back for free. Then you do this massive deal with ESPN. And then Also, you acquire the score, and let's go. I'm going to go in the weeds here because the other guys will probably have better takes than me just generally. In-house ESPN Bet was still using Kambi as an odds provider for their kiosk and their counter acquisition because they could never get the score platform and the tech stack that they bought to work in the casinos. So the kiosk and the casinos, you're still having to pay Kambi as a third-party operator to provide your odds there. And so it's like if I go into a casino and I got my ESPN Bet app, and it's like, wait, this line says this, but I still go to the key. It's going to read something different. So I think they got screwed on all three deals: the Barstool, the ESPN, and acquiring all the Score Mobile stuff. That was crap. I don't know. I don't know how long Penn Gaming. I mean, if you were a heavy investor, like just absolute disaster in this company. And I don't know. The other thing I thought. Great point by what was his name? Taylor. This is like the Fox Bet thing all over again. Like brand like big names using your book that doesn't matter at all. Like there's no like reputable like I remember Fox Bet was on the NFL on Fox, and Fox Bet would have like $6 in handle every month. So it's like that has absolutely zero to do in terms of brand partnership with who's using your sports book.
Interesting take there. And people just want a good product at the end of the day. I remember in the infancy of the Hammer where there was a little bit of struggles. I think that's been said publicly before. And what we wanted to do initially was bring in a lot of big names to help give more credibility to the brand. And when we started focusing more on the content with less going towards big brand names and big names in the industry, not to be disrespectful to them, that's when we started to see more success. So a good example of that here. Storm, let's go to you. What are your thoughts on everything going on with ESPN Bet and Penn?
I'll come at this from perspective of personal experience. We have two partners there right now that went over a month without response after getting their account suspended on a cash out. And we had to take the cases to gaming in their respective states. It hasn't gotten anywhere. I was trying to look it up. I didn't get to it in time. I know that Toons had a similar issue with them as well. I think his turned into trying to get their cash at a brick and mortar location, and some of the guys he worked with didn't like the responses they got, and it escalated into the police showing up. Not surprised if this happened, obviously. If that's how you treat your customers, whether they win or lose, you're not going to stick around long. I know the app itself was horrendous to use. The website was horrendous to use. I didn't know that they were Kambi. That's interesting. I don't know what brick and mortar locations they had themselves attached to, but I think pretty much anybody who pays attention knew that they were doomed from the start. And it makes you wonder how a company like Penn could throw so much money at something like that. It's mind-boggling to me that, this went through boardrooms and approvals and, C-level guys, and they said, yeah, this is a great idea. We're going to crush it. We're going to compete with FanDuel and DraftKings here. Going on to the guy who said that he thinks underdog is the one with the best chance. I don't think anybody has a chance. I don't know if Taylor has some sort of association with underdog and that's why he plugged them there or something, but I don't see how you could say anybody other than like Polymarket or Kalshi, and I know they're prediction markets at this point, but I don't see how anybody has any sort of brand recognition or ability to acquire market share that could compete with DraftKings and FanDuel at this point. And for all of us, that's horrible, right? Horrible to not have competition out there. The more they consolidate this stuff, the less usable these sites are going to become, like for guys that win. And it's just a poor outlook in general.
So as far as like ESPN shift towards the score bet, I believe that their odds were provided in-house for the app, but just I also didn't know that in casinos and over the counter they were getting their odds provided by Kambi, which is interesting. I find the score bet is like a really good interface. So I think anyone who does have ESPN Bet might see a bit of a better product after the shift there, and you'll still get, I think, the same odds. So I think for the users, there won't be much of a difference. In fact, there might be improvements. But let's go to you, Mike. Give us your take on everything going on with this situation.
Well, first, Storm, you said that you didn't think anyone had a chance besides Kalshi and Polymarket. The fact that Underdog is getting this CFTC license or whatever, do you think maybe that is what gives them a chance to compete if they're able to integrate that and kind of get in markets where their other books aren't able to?
I don't think their user base is as big as everybody thinks it is. And I don't think there's as much of a crossover from the type of, contests or whatever they call it that they do into just mainstream sports betting. I think everybody's way too optimistic about their chances.
Yeah, I would generally say all these companies, kind of speaking to what Joey said at the end, they add all these, people who are endorsing, and they make all these giant partnership deals. And time after time, we figure out that people just want a nice UI that they can use, something that is pretty easy to work with and kind of makes sense to them. So that's why they go back to FanDuel and DraftKings. They, find familiarity in those books, and they think it's good. I agree with Storm on the consolidation point. People argue over, is it good if books have universal limits? Is it good if, more books are sharp, et cetera? I think the single worst thing that can happen to bettors is consolidation in the market. Different books offering different products, allowing more opportunities that are mispriced, whether you're an originator looking to kind of pick to get the best price and bet it to a low theoretical hold, or if you're a top-down bettor looking to kind of steam chase and find price and discrepancies. I think that consolidation is really the worst thing that can happen. And unfortunately, when you have a business that is operated digitally like this, it makes a lot of sense that consolidation happens because everybody starts to flock to the best app. The best app gets more money to reinvest in that app, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle at some point.
So what's going to stop this process from happening? Is it going to be prediction markets? Like I feel like especially just being in Ontario when sports betting became regulated, it would kind of seem like this is where it was going to trend towards. Eventually, it would just be two of these sort of like two different monopolies, I guess, in DraftKings and FanDuel, eventually consolidating all these other sports books. Mike, do you have any thoughts on what could stop that from happening? Can anything stop that from happening?
Something certainly can. I would say anytime you're dealing with technology, you should always, keep an eye on the unforeseen path. So I don't know what's going to kind of displace these things, but it looked like Google would never be replaced. And oh my gosh, Google has such an advantage on search. They're going to dominate. Then ChatGPT comes out. It's a new invention. It comes up. Obviously, this is a little bit, it's not quite as tech bound when you're talking about sports betting apps, but nobody would have thought Kalshi or Polymarket or these prediction markets would have had a chance like 2 years ago. And then all of a sudden they popped up. So anytime you're talking about tech, anytime you're talking about regulation, I would say just don't overfit your prediction to what's currently happening. But it certainly doesn't look great right now, but who knows?
Interesting. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, as we move into our next topic, please make sure you have already hit that like button. And again, consider subscribing to the Circles Off channel. We're live for Circle Back on Mondays at 1 p.m. We have this pre-recorded show Fridays at 8 a.m. We have bonus educational content, interviews, and other stuff that come out Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Plenty of content to keep you busy throughout the week here on the channel. But it was already a pretty bad look for ESPN with ESPN Bet fizzling out. And I think it got even worse for ESPN with this promo that they started running throughout the week for an app called Solitaire Cash. And it started for me with this tweet from Stephen A. Smith. He says, "You can't beat my score. Nobody can. Download Solitaire Cash, enter the Beat Steven tournament." And then asked people to post screenshots, and then was basically promoting this solitaire app where you can play for games for real money. There's risk involved in that, but it's a solitaire app where you can play in actual tournaments against other people to win money. And then there were people like Mina Kimes who were responding to it with a hashtag ad saying getting in practice for the game instead of during it, because this promo for Stephen A. Smith comes from him actually playing solitaire on his phone during a game in the NBA Finals while the play was going on, which caught a lot of heat. And we talked about it on this show. And then we had a lot of replies from other people within ESPN, like Dan Orlovsky, Laura Rutledge, and also Mina Kimes again, using hashtag ad and replying to Stephen A. Smith. Overall, like, to me, it just seems like a pretty bad look for ESPN. Mike, we'll go back to you and start with you on this topic. Is it that bad of a look? Is it something that we shouldn't care about? How do you feel about this?
It's mind-boggling to me that we've gone so quickly into just not giving a shit how things look as far as optics and just willing to do anything to get the bag. I understand. Maybe you can say it's always been this way. And, these people have always been kind of doing whatever they need. They just did it quieter. It seems like now nobody has any kind of, standards that they try to apply to and try to carry over from one facet to the next. To have everybody tweet this, and I don't know if they were made to, so, I don't want to judge on them too far individually, but
the hashtag ad, I think they were made to.
Yeah, I understand, but I don't know. At some level, doesn't it feel gross? Isn't it wearing away at the long-term value of ESPN if everyone knows that you're just a complete shill for whatever comes out? And I don't know. I guess there used to be more of a secrecy about it or some kind of idea of journalistic integrity. And now it's shilling out for whatever kind of dollar you can get.
Well, we wouldn't know anything about journalistic integrity here at the Hammer Betting Network, but Knish, so you kind of laughing there. Give us your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN, it's funny that it happens the same day as we're getting out of the ESPN bet business. And now, we're going to shill a solitaire thing that I don't even, is it just this is just a Stephen A. Smith is a partner in it, right? In the company where I don't even know if it's affiliated with ESPN, but let's use Stephen A. to, I don't know, maybe he's throwing some kickbacks to Mina and Orlovsky in that. I don't know. We're going.
I guess we don't know exactly how the money's being distributed.
It's a sweepstakes company. That's actually what it is.
And that Stephen A. I think has some investment, in, right? So that I think that's what I saw in what was in the chat earlier, and so he's now using the ESPN personalities to bump this up. I mean, I guess we're in that.
So I did note that Stephen A's initial tweet didn't have the hashtag ad. You do have to disclose if you're being paid to promote something. And Stephen A didn't have it, but the rest of the ESPN staff did have that. So I found that a little bit weird, but that does make sense to me. Stephen A has a stake in the company, therefore doesn't have to disclose that it's an ad. Storm, you talked about it a little bit already, but do you want to go any deeper on this one?
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts on this one. So Isaac linked the article about the parent company of this app called Papaya Gaming, and they are in a lawsuit currently where this particular app, they were being sued for pitting bots against human players. So they were cheating their customers. As part of the lawsuit, they were being sued by a competitor where they basically stole their source code and their entire business idea. That was another lawsuit they had pending against them. Then one of the craziest things was looking at the numbers is the company has made over $700 million. And I'm just looking at this man, we are all morons for not starting a sweepstakes casino, right? Yeah. And apparently it's just totally legal. You're allowed to do it. So I don't understand how that works, but I guess you can defraud people and call it sweepstakes and, just go retire on an island somewhere and make more money than you ever could grinding out sports betting. The other thing that was crazy to me about this is the other people that are part of ESPN tweeting about this. This would be if one of the guys who worked for me, Tally or Flounder or somebody starts tweeting hey, go play on this sports book when we all know it's a scammer, right? That's how I equate this in my mind. How are the uppers at ESPN looking at this and okay with this? That their employees are just out there essentially shilling for what they've admitted in this lawsuit. At one point at least was a scam where they were defrauding their customers.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of chatter online in my research about this, that when you get really good on this app and you actually start making money, you get limited or you get put in unfair matchups like you described. So not a great company to be representing, especially people affiliated with ESPN. Mike, it looked like you wanted to add something there. Do you have something here?
Well, it's just funny. They really start to cut people off when they're good at it. So it's not affiliated with ESPN. They decided to cut ESPN Bet just a time ago. You can only have so many companies that are starting to cut off winners before people start to question things. But I think I would guess that ESPN probably has some deal with Stephen A's production crew or something that, I don't know how all those higher level business things works, but I would guess the ESPN employees, I would guess ESPN is asking them to do it. No, Storm, don't you? Or you think that they individually were doing this?
I don't know how the clearance would work in a situation like that. Like if Stephen A is like, hey, help me out, go and tweet this, or does that have to be cleared by the higher ups?
Stephen A has his own show now. I wonder if it's more affiliated with that rather than ESPN. And Stephen A has a lot of control, I think, over his own content nowadays. I think that was part of his latest agreement with ESPN. So I didn't come into this segment thinking about it like this, but now it kind of makes sense that it's being pushed more from Stephen A's side rather than ESPN coming at them. So
yeah, he owns a production company that has the rights to they are leasing essentially his show. It's kind of like the McAfee deal. So
okay.
I think that he has a different set of rules than everybody else, and maybe even has the ability to ask for sponsorship from ESPN employees would be my guess. Again, this is all just guessing.
I think in the end, it's just a pretty bad look for ESPN. Whether ESPN is affiliated with this or not, they maybe could have stepped in because this is a pretty bad look for them. Mike, you opened this segment by saying that, is there no shame in just chasing the bag and doing whatever? Well, we definitely here at Circles Off don't just want to work with anybody. We only work with companies that we truly believe in, which is why we are proudly presented by Kalshi. We talked about it in the first segment as well. What can compete with some of these conglomerate, humongous recreational books? Potentially, it's prediction markets just like Kalshi. It's a company that we stand by and we think you should get involved with as well. The link is in the description below to sign up to Kalshi today. Get involved with prediction markets. They're growing at a very rapid rate, but it still feels like they are in their infancy. You could use the QR code on screen right now to sign up as well, and it does support the show. You can find a lot of unique markets and a lot of markets that you are more accustomed to seeing as well. Now we can move into our next topic, and this one caused quite a bit of a stir on gambling Twitter. It first started with a tweet from Charlie Bilello, who said, Americans bet over $148 billion on sports last year, which is more than they spent on movies, books, concerts, and sports tickets combined. Aaron at Blonded Aaron, says sports betting is genuinely a sign of low IQ, and you can't change my mind. James Holzhauer, who had a very good run on Jeopardy, who is a professional sports bettor, showcased, quote tweeted just by showcasing his Jeopardy profile, essentially showing his 31 games in a row win streak, which was a little bit funny. It's kind of like, I don't really know a ton about his gambling prowess, but it does feel like, I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for this, but just because this is okay, here's a good one. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of university and found a lot of success in business. So the dumb kid in your high school used that as motivation to drop out of high school or drop out of college just because, well, Mark Zuckerberg can do it, then why can't I do it? And also another tweet here from Ian McBetts. God forbid a guy bets a couple bucks, so he might feel something for a few minutes in this cold, heartless, meaningful world. Still feeling the effects of some unfortunate sports events over the last week. I'm sure, Ian, sorry. I'm feeling it too with you this time. It's not just me making fun of the Falcons this time. But on sports betting, low IQ, Storm, I'm sure you disagree, but what do you think about this subject?
Well, first we'll start with the original tweet. I was having this conversation with somebody who knows what I do for a living, but isn't really involved at all. We're talking over the weekend. They were saying it's pretty crazy that kids now don't drink. They don't really go out. They're not using drugs. They gamble. So that statistic, 148 billion, doesn't surprise me at all. And that I assume that's just from retail books. So maybe double or triple that number. My favorite response to this tweet from Aaron was, people who say you can't change my mind is a sign of low IQ. Obviously, it seems like maybe she was joking a little bit, but I found it funny because earlier this morning, I'll pull up the exact message. So, somebody who is very, very big and very, very rich in sports sent me some stupid messages this morning, and I forwarded them to his partner, and I said, "Is this guy stupid?" And he responded, "By IQ standards, we all are." So the timing of that is funny, right? It's just, low IQ, that discussion. It just seems like rage bait. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it seemed to work. It got a lot of engagement, I think.
I don't think it was rage bait. I just think it depends on what environment you're in. Like in a university environment, like the type of people that are betting on sports and recreationally, a lot of them are not going to be doing very well. And we know this is like, what is it, 99? I mean, I'm sure this is a conservative estimate. 99% of people lose when they bet on or are losing betting on sports. Knish, did you want to add anything here? Do you feel like sport bettors are people of low IQ?
I mean, you know what? I'll play the devil's advocate here. I'd probably say in a lot of scenarios, as you kind of alluded to right there, that she's right. And especially if you're on a college campus, I don't know. I was just trying to find her profile to like see, her age range. But like, yeah, if you're surrounded by a bunch of frat bros who only want to talk about like their SGPs, like I can see how, and especially like if you're a woman who doesn't give a shit about sports at all, and it's like, oh, I gotta hear this guy. So I think in our segment of the world, that yes, I know a bunch of people that bet sports that are like some of the smartest people I've ever met. For your normie, if I can put my myself in the shoes of like I don't know, a college age girl out there who's surrounded by a bunch of idiots.
She's 24, so
there
not far off the college age. Yeah,
there you go. So she's probably like, these fucking idiots, all they want to do is like lose money on sports betting all day. I can kind of see it. So if I can kind of see it from her perspective, then maybe like it's not like she's going to Bet Bash and being like, oh yeah, there's Billy Walters, there's Zelko. No, she's seeing a bunch of frat bro friends that can don't even want to look at her because they're too busy sweating out a 8-leg parlay.
Yeah, my intro to betting apps was when I was in my first year of university, and I was on the soccer team. We were on our way back from a road trip, and one of the seniors in the back of the bus betting on each point in a tennis match. And so every next point he was betting on who would win the next point. So maybe she does have some justification to this. Mike, what do you think?
I think anytime you have a large population of people, it's similar to like, this fan base is blank. It's like, I don't know, some are, some aren't. They're probably more similar to the general population than you want to think. I would guess that she is probably not talking with a lot of advantage players. She's not talking with a lot of plus EV bettors. Like, I'm sure in her circumstance, the population she's dealing with, she's 100% right. I thought your point about James being the Mark Zuckerberg comp is very good. Like, yes, this one guy is very intelligent, good at sports betting. I don't think that him and the sophomore at LSU that's dumping money away betting on SEC games are quite the same. So, yeah, I understand it from her perspective. The people she's dealing with, I would guess she's probably actually 100% on the mark.
All right, we'll move into the next topic. Actually, give us your thoughts in the comments down below. Is sports betting a sign of low intelligence? Because you know what? Typically, if I do talk to somebody about sports betting, and the things they ask me, I go, yeah, this guy's probably an idiot. So I guess there is some grounds to it in my case scenario at the least. But like I said, we'll move into our next topic, which is about courtsiding. This comes from Golden Pants. Golden Pants 013 on Twitter saying, going on a space today, I don't think courtsiders are evil, nor do I think they have any obligation to stop. But I think they have interesting impacts on the exchange ecosystem, which are worth discussing. Aware this isn't as catchy of a tagline, though, because he was featuring on some content with @HiveLive_. Storm, I wanted to go to you first on this one. What's your take on courtsiding? Is it an acceptable form of betting? Do you think that this is where we kind of go too far in taking advantage of a sports book? What do you think?
Why would you go to me first on this topic? I wonder.
It's just random.
Well, a very important distinction with what you said. You said, does it go too far when you're betting against a sports book? And in the context of what Golden Pants is saying, he's talking about
exchange. Okay, you're right.
So huge difference. We if you read the news at all lately, there was something out there that had the term Sportsbook 1 and Sportsbook 2 in it, portraying them as victims of something. I'm never going to feel bad about taking money from a sportsbook, right? They have the edge. If your tech isn't good enough, if your traders aren't good enough, fair game, right? Anything stands in my eyes. I've made a living doing stuff like that for a long time. It gets interesting, and there's been a lot of interesting discussion on Twitter about this recently, where people are probably saying more than they should publicly. I think, Mike, you've contributed to some of the conversation yourself, probably said more than you should at certain points, but courtsiding when you're talking about an exchange is interesting because, you're betting against another peer. You're not betting against a sports book. So
right.
I do think you have to approach it differently. Most of the time when you're betting at a certain level, you're going to know most of those peers that you're betting against. So you need to weigh the ethics of that. You're no longer taking money from Jason Robbins. I could be taking money from Mike or Flup or somebody like that. And I don't necessarily like the idea of that. I think most of what Golden Pants is, discussing here is that it just the impact on the exchange ecosystem. At the bottom line is that nobody wants to offer live liquidity because they're fearing courtsiders essentially, and that harms the product. So, I've been consulting with some of the exchanges about, how do we seed more live markets without everybody essentially shitting their pants about getting courtsided. And there's no right answer. We could spend a whole episode talking about this, but it's tough. And I like that, I guess that guy used like the clickbait of saying courtsiders are evil or whatever. And Golden Pants distinguished quickly, like they have no obligation to stop or anything. I don't think anybody has the right answer yet. And I don't know what it's going to take to get there. My personal opinion is, you throw in a delay for everybody because it's a prediction market. You can't say, oh, well, this guy's courtsiding, so we're going to put a delay on him like DraftKings or FanDuel can. So it's tough. I don't think anybody has the right answer yet.
Mike, what do you think on this one? It was good you made the distinction there, Storm, on it being exchanges, because that's where I've seen most tweets about courtsiders coming up recently. What's your take on this one, Mike?
Everything's fair in love and war, they say. So I think the same goes for exchanges. We can't have a system where you're saying, well, let's rely on one another to not pass post each other, to do, whatever situation, angle shoot, all these things. You're never going to get a situation where everybody agrees to the same kind of ethical bounds. So everybody is going to go up to whatever the exchange allows. So if those are the terms of engagement, those are the terms of engagement.
But not to interrupt, but
go ahead.
You would rather courtside Citadel or Susquehanna than courtside one of your buddies, obviously. There's no way to know.
For sure. I'm not even saying that there isn't something, kind of morally slightly wrong with it if you're courtsiding. What I'm saying is you'll never be able to get everybody to agree on a standard that they think's fair. And if you can courtside, somebody will. So basically, if we're going to all agree on, rules to play with, I think the rules should just be whatever is allowed at the exchange. And that's what you have to go with because there's really no other option. Otherwise, you're going to have people who are kind of picked off by the people who are willing to do the picking off. So it's really up to the exchange to set the rules because otherwise it's going to devolve into whatever there's no other option than if the exchange kind of making the rules and people having to go by those rules. So I think that courtsiding is it great to have it happen? No. Do I blame the individuals? It's kind of like foul baiting in the NBA. Do I want to see people foul bait? No. Do I blame the players for trying to get the foul, or do I blame the refs for awarding it? So I think it's up to the exchanges to stop it if they want to stop it, or otherwise I think their live liquidity is going to be pretty suspect until they figure out a way to kind of protect people who are offering markets that way.
Good example, I think, there. Knish, give your take on this one.
I mean, I think just this is going to be blunt, but if you're a market maker, I don't know if I would be doing live tennis at an exchange. just like the solution. I know that's like, I think as the more prevalent this becomes, where people are like openly tweeting about it, the more you'd be at risk of getting court-sided if you're going to offer that. So from a market make perspective, I would not be setting markets for live tennis unless I felt confident that I was not getting, like that selection of people getting a market to me. And if I had any intuition, I would just not do it. And maybe that's the solution and I know that, Kalshi and everybody wants to offer it. But if that's going to be, I think the more prevalent it becomes, then the only solution is just to not have it available or not put out a market for it. And if you are, then kind of to PB's point, a little bit of kind of the risks here. Like that's the same, but I know the risk of like, if I go on there and put that someone could be court-siding me, so I'm not going to do it.
Yep. I see a lot of this. There's people talk about like, oh, this is an opportunity. There's going to be liquidity available. I've gotten frustrated with other people in the past and talking about it. What I think people fail to like understand or to account for is that these things are dynamic and they change. If people are getting court-sided and picked off, they're not going to just continue to dump money into something as they're giving up $40,000 fills to someone court-siding. The money will go away. Edges don't just last. There's not a free money machine that just exists at all times. So if these things are getting taken advantage, people will close off the advantage and close out the edge. So it's a cat and mouse game. It's back and forth. The idea that like, oh, this is working now, what a great opportunity. Well, it's just not going to work for forever. I mean, maybe you can get it in now before, during this period of time, but like people are going to adjust to this kind of new situation.
Before we go into our next topic, just want to talk about our college football channel we have at the Hammer Betting Network, live every Monday and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time with Brad Powers and co-host Joey Knish. Knish, I didn't prepare you for this, so let's see what you got. Tell the people about Hit the Books.
You don't need to prepare the greatest promo college football bet here in the history of content on this. Maybe I could have used a little bit of a heads up, but you know what? Forget about it. Fridays, baby, 5 o'clock live. Me and the Godfather of CFB, Brad Powers, giving you the best college football content on the internet. You don't need AI. You don't need anybody out there else telling you what to bet. Come see it live at 5 on Friday, and a little bonus on Saturdays. Now we got halftime shows too. So come join us for the halftime show. The Saturday games at noon, the two best in the business. I'm not going to tell you who's number 1 or 2. You make the decision. Come join us Friday. Hit the books, baby. Joey K and BP.
All right, a real rough at the start, but you figured it out. You got into it. Maybe my fault for not preparing you in advance, but you can go to the link in the description to subscribe to the Hit the Books channel and check out everything else we have in the Hammer Betting Network. While you're down there, you can comment on the court-siding debate, whether it's okay at a sports book, whether it's okay for at a prediction market. Give us any of your thoughts, because we like to feature comments on the show from the previous week, which is exactly what we're going to be doing now. 3 comments from the previous show that I brought up for today. First one comes from John Fresix. Hopefully I said that right. It says, the Ohtani intentional walk discussion reminds me of around 20 years ago of a similar conversation about Barry Bonds, when at one point he had over 100 intentional walks in a single season. Absolute insanity. And thankfully, I think we've gotten to the point where you can just intentionally walk someone without having to throw 4 pitches and waste time. But Storm, we didn't have you on the show last week, but do you want to weigh in at all on the intentional walk debate? Is it bad? Should we allow it? Any thoughts you have?
I'm in favor of anything that speeds up the game. What were the arguments? I'm curious against.
So the Blue Jays intentionally walked Ohtani 4 times in extra innings of Game 3 of the World Series. And Mike's solution, which I thought was interesting, was that if you intentionally walk somebody for a second time, or you walk somebody for a second time, they get 2 bases instead of 1 base. But overall, people wanted to take away the intentional walk rule because they want to see hitters actually hit in big games.
I don't see anything wrong with it, right? That comment didn't mention Barry Bonds was intentionally walked with the bases loaded before. Right? If you choose to do that, that's your choice as a team. I don't really have an issue with the intentional walk rule. I think that's kind of, I don't know, maybe that makes me like a boomer that I want to stick with tradition on that one. But I think that's kind of one of those things that I don't want to see change about the game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's strategy. And like you said, it's advantageous. Like if you get the guy in first, in Game 7 of the World Series, Vladdy got intentionally walked to first. Bo Bichette hits a home run, put the Blues up 3-0.
I want to see a bunch of nerds do their analytics, decide when it's good to walk somebody. I want to watch Shohei hit a dinger. Come on, what are we doing here?
Well, I mean, if you take, like
I
I said
always
last week,
I always liked
take it
the
away, they'll just walk
discussion.
them.
I always like the discussion of like, okay, but if you're the next guy up, it's like, okay, well, that's a huge FU to me. Like, I want to go hit a dinger now, you know? Then we get into the motivation and sports conversation. So I really don't have an issue.
Kevin Youkilis, former Boston Red Sox player, said he loved when David Ortiz got intentionally walked right before him. He said it gave him such an adrenaline rush to go after Ortiz, knowing that they walked him to face him instead. So I agree. I'm fine with where it is. But if they were going to change it, Mike's proposition of 2 bases instead would come up. But there'd just be too much at play there. And I think it's fine currently where it is. Next comment comes from Brian D5921, who says George really needs to adopt some sort of Kelly staking system. He fires on a -110. It fires the same on a -110 and a 60-1. I kind of hadn't really noticed this, but he seems to just be happy to take these humongous prices at the same sort of stake as he would for just like an average moneyline bet when it comes to like coach of the year markets. Knish, have you noted anything like this? Do you think somebody needs to intervene here?
Well, I would say if you're hoping for George to implement Kelly staking on his bets, I don't know. I feel like the result of that might be worse than what's going on now.
That's true, actually. I didn't think about that.
I'm saying probably leave him with the old flat stake.
The Kelly staking told me to bet fucking $10,000 on this
right.
of the year.
He thinks the line should be 14 and it's 3, and he bets 85.2% of his roll. Probably not the way to go.
Anything to add, Mike?
Do you think his mom's inheritance is included in the bankroll when he does the Kelly calc?
I forget.
I think we'd have to decide.
I think he said indirectly his net worth was $50,000 once. I'm pretty sure he said that once. So I don't think the inheritance is
doesn't go in
factoring into that. But when unfortunately the inheritance does kick in, maybe it will become part of the staking, and maybe we'll see the units go up. I don't know what we'll see on that one. And further on this topic, last comment, Cloudy Lemon Drop said, great episode, but I don't think LaFleur at 600-1, let alone 60-1, is a good bet. We talked about adding on to the coach of the year positions. Knish, do you want to say something here?
Well, they lost to the Panthers after last week's show. So
not great for the coach of the year.
No. So I think Cloudy Lemon 1, Joey K 0, because that coach of the year bet's probably dead now.
Yeah, absolutely dead. All right. Next topic on the show. Oof, this was a tough one to see. We actually had to verify. We had a few people who had to go in and verify this was true so that we could talk about it on the show today. Bet365 in certain areas of Europe, I believe, but for sure in Austria, you can now deposit into Bet365 using Klarna, which is a payment service where you can sorry, I'm not explaining this correctly, but you can delay your payments. You can pay in installments. That's the word. You can pay in installments, and you can deposit up to $2,000 using Klarna now onto Bet365. So you're able to pay that in installments. People like to use this on things like on Amazon, or if you're buying something expensive, like top of my head, like an engagement ring, you can defer these payments in installments. But obviously, when it comes to a sports book, this might be seen as problematic. AW at AW Bets X says, surely not, with the laughing emoji, because this seems pretty crazy. You know, sports books often preach that they are very much in tune with responsible gaming, but then you see something like this. I've kind of given away my opinion on it, but Knish, what's your opinion on it?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had no idea what this was earlier when it got sent in the chat. I had never heard of it.
Hopefully I explained it well enough. I know I didn't do a great job, but I hope I explained it well enough.
But I was like, I don't know what the big deal is about this. I don't know. Is this just like a Venmo for British people or something? So yeah, I would say probably not the best for responsible gaming. So next time Isaac's on, we can have him go in on it.
Mike, you have anything to add?
Another example of, is there no shame left? I mean, this is like in The Sopranos where he lets the guy, bet into the thing, and then he's like, I knew I was always going to eventually take your
car, your
shopper.
business.
Yeah, I think that they're like, just go ahead, dump the money in. Bet365 will own your house. Who cares? You got an illness. Let's take advantage of it. It's gross. There's a million things wrong with it.
I mean, sorry,
Go ahead.
Bet365 isn't taking your house because for Bet365, it's like they're getting the money. Klarna's giving them the money. It's Klarna that's coming after you to get the money after the fact. That's where the mob.
Your house goes to Klarna, not Bet365. When you're homeless, you'll have that knowing in your heart. You'll at least get that kind of satisfaction. Maybe that's the justification for Bet365. We didn't know there was any payment issues. We thought they would have just paid up front. We got all the money from Klarna, and it's up to them to determine whether or not there's an issue at hand. So maybe that's kind of the mental loophole that Bet365 is currently going with. Storm, do you want to add anything to this?
Quick Google search of Klarna interest rate says their rates range from 0 to 36% APR. 36% APR is in line with a street loan. And I have seen plenty of people, screw their lives up taking street loans to cover gambling. I don't see how this is any different. It's disgusting.
Yeah. They're probably going to tend more towards the 36 than the 0, I would guess, for these Bet365.
Yeah, these would be considered high risk, payments. So they're definitely going to be on the higher end.
Right. I would strongly advise anyone watching, please do not deposit into a sportsbook by paying in installments with something like Klarna. Please. Isaac's not here. He can't preach. So I will do it. I will do it for him. You don't need to gamble. You don't have to go through this process. All right. We can move into the next topic then. We have one that came. This is kind of tough to decipher through. It all started with this. There was a bit of a public spat that occurred between two people who have been interviewed previously on this channel. So it all started with this tweet from Andrew Gombis, who is a MMA originator. And he had a conversation with Frank White about what the goal is of an account that you get for sports betting. Is it to just maximize your earnings immediately, even at the expense of losing the account? Or is it prolonging that account for as long as possible? Then there was a bit of, sorry, I have these out of order here. Forgive me. The right side is the first one, where Frank White said that the main objective is keeping accounts open as long as possible, whereas Porter, BA Analytics, who has been on Circle Back before, and like I said, has been interviewed previously, says that he argues the opposite. He wants to maximize his earnings right away and do as much damage as early as possible. There was disagreement from Adam at the Beagle Bets, who again has been interviewed on this channel previously, saying that for sure, for the person turning the account over to you, they have different incentives. That's when there was a bit of beef that started. Porter said that the easiest counter argument is if this was true, I'd have no accounts and you'd have all of them. But here's the key. You have the same amount of knowledge as to how the business part works as to dub club touts. And then Adam said, what a remarkably stupid answer in so many ways. So then Porter threatened to cut off people working with the Beagle Bet, which I wasn't really sure what he was trying to do there. And that's kind of where Porter kept going with it. Adam then quote tweeted a response from Porter saying that eventually he was going to start doing that by saying, what are you going to do? Not give me $200 fills on Super Bowl props anymore? How will I ever recover from this? So I think a pretty good reply there. Storm, you had some thoughts in our group chat about this. Let's lead off with you. What was your take on this public spat?
I don't agree with Porter taking things public. And, I told him, I said, you are an unrelenting asshole. And I think he's fine with, playing that role. He certainly is very successful in sports betting. I don't think you have to be that much of a dick. Adam is a super nice guy for anybody who knows him, and very soft-spoken too. So for him to get in a spat like that was kind of surprising, but I guess Porter could bring that out in anybody. We've certainly had our own disagreements about things in the past. I do agree with, the baseline of his argument before this whole tit for tat thing started, talking about the account stuff. I'll toot my own horn here for a second. What he said is, if your argument was true, I'd have no accounts, you'd have all of them. I can say, and I can't say why, I know that, our group has more PPH accounts than anybody. And, the type of stuff we bet is similar or even probably considered even less desirable. than some of the stuff that Porter bets. And I disagree. I actually replied in that thread. I said something along the lines of like, trying to preserve PPH accounts doesn't work. Like, if you want to bet major market stuff, you can bet on sharp books, you can bet on reduced juice books, you can bet on prediction markets and exchanges now. You can find places where maybe you play over a fish and you get some kickback. There's no reason to play stuff like that people would consider preserving an account into minus 110 lines on a book where there's also counterparty risk most of the time. I've seen guys back in the day when we used to bet baseball, right? These guys would have pretty high variance. So say you lose 4 weeks in a row and you pay a guy 5K, 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 5K. You're 20K in the hole, and then these guys get hot and rip off a 50K week and you don't get paid. And you still have to pay the guy that you're moving the plays for. There's not much upside there. So I agree with Porter's sentiment. I don't agree with his execution at all. And things like that most of the time should be taken private.
All right, let's go to you, Knish, on this one. Give your thoughts on the disagreement here. Maybe provide your insight on accounts. Do you care about the longevity or earning power immediately? Anything you have?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's the ultimate like balance. You could talk in circles forever on this topic around like keeping the account long or versus like jamming it real fast. So I don't know. I think you're getting a little niche there. I know Porter likes to go hard in the paint, when it comes to he's a go for the jugular type guy when it goes for arguments. I've never had, like a negative interaction with him on this type of thing, but from the outside looking in, I do think he takes it to a level that's beyond what, I would call. I would agree with Storm, where to me, that's something that you want to bring it to, more of a private conversation rather than airing that out in public in that instance. But it's one of those, like, we could, in the intricacies of like how long can you keep an account versus what you're playing in there, we could talk for a week straight on that. So I think it just so many factors, like, depends on really what the goals are, what happens with that. So I don't know. I wish I had a stronger take on it.
How about you, Mike?
As Storm likes to say, there's different ways to skin a cat in this business. With different accounts, you want to have different approaches. If you have a juicy legal that you think can make you a ton of money, you don't want to go in and start ripping off market props and get it limited right away. That account's probably super valuable. If you have a PPH, Storm mentioned, you probably want to just go in, bet your stuff, wait till they stiff you, and then move on from there. It all depends on the account. It depends with the way you bet. Certain people are top down, certain guys are originating. I think there's no one size fits all. This beef with Porter and Adam, I think, stems back a little bit further. So I think that there's probably some stuff lasting from that. So that's just my guess on it. But I don't know. I think there's different ways to attack different accounts. So that makes sense to me.
All right. And we will go into now our chopping block. But before we do, let's hear about the newsletter we have here at The Hammer. Not sure if you guys are aware yet, but we have an incredible 3 times a week newsletter here at The Hammer. Mondays, you get latest injury reports, takeaways from the NFL, early leans, and NHL discussion from Alex Moretto. Wednesdays, you get the first practice report from every team. Betstamp gives out plus CV props, and much more. For Fridays, we have Kirk's Hammer. He usually writes about things he's observed as a pro bettor, things in the industry, and things that have helped him get better. You can subscribe right now at thehammer.bet or by scanning the QR code that is on screen now for the video, or by heading to the link in the description at any point to never miss out on a newsletter. Final segment of the show is the chopping block, and 3 things feature on the chopping block for the segments that we don't think require full time to commit to it, but we still wanted to talk about nonetheless. The first one comes from at Los Talks Pats, who said Patriots wide receiver Kayshon Boutte announced on his Discord server that an MRI revealed he had a grade 1 hamstring. It's a screenshot of Kayshon Boutte in his Discord. And Mike, should we normalize players having their own Discord servers?
No, because I'm sick of there's 18 million messaging apps. There's 45. You got to get a Discord. Somebody's got a Telegram group. Someone's on Signal. Somebody's Twitter DMing. I need everybody to get on one system that we can all rely on and all go to. I don't care about the insider trading part of it, the different dynamics. All I want is less communication services.
All right. Knish, what do you think?
No, I'm with PB here. Like, just one more. Like, you cannot have play. You know what? Now that I'm saying it out, maybe that you get if everybody has their own Discord, then you can get a little edge here with if you're really in the weeds. But no, from a sanity perspective, I prefer that the Schefter and the Raps to just be tweeting it out as opposed to digging through Keyshawn Boutte's Discord server.
Well, I guess the Schefters and the Raps are like the people who aggregate all this info for us, because they oftentimes take the info from other sources and aggregate it. Maybe that's part of that's kind of what Underdog does with injury news. What do you think, Storm?
Well, slippery slope, right? We're all talking about information now, right? What if Boutte wakes up and he's got a super private channel in his own Discord? He's like, man, I really feel like shit today. And somebody goes and bets his under. Okay, is that inside information? How are we treating it? Just one of those things where I think we're trending in the wrong direction, and it's a slippery slope, and it's probably better off without it.
Okay, I could see the appeal of a team Discord with the players involved in it. And I guess,
how many people can Boutte have for his individual? Sorry to cut you off. For his Discord.
I was about to say, how many people are in this Discord server?
Yeah, I'm curious.
With respect to him, how many people are in a Keyshawn Boutte Discord? I was mentioned this is an NFL player. He has 7 likes. I don't know when this was screenshotted versus when it was posted, but there's 7 likes on it. There's at least 7 people there. I don't imagine this is a ton. So, like Knish said, if a lot of players did this, there might be some little tidbits of info in there for sports bettors to keep an eye on. So I do have to agree with you guys that maybe the players don't realize it, and this is very innocent to them, but it could lead to some bigger issues on the gambling side of things. We've seen the background of Storm throughout the show. He's got plenty of dogs. We heard Knish's dog on the show. Not hearing my dog today. And the alias of Mike is a dog, Mr. Peanutbettor. So let's talk about dogs here. Tom Brady cloned his former dog that died 2 years ago, which had a lot of people chattering online. Knish, I know you like your dogs, as does Storm. I'll go to both of you. But Knish, you first of all, would you ever clone one of your former dogs?
You know what? At first, you might say the problem is this. Even if you clone the dog and get the same genetics, just like with a person, the dog's personality and all that is kind of an amalgamation of life experiences and how it was raised and all that. So, well, genetically, you might be getting the same dog, behaviorally, emotionally. I know I'm going way deep here. Are you really going to be you're not really getting the carbon copy of your same dog. So you could just, honestly, I think you would accomplish the same thing, just getting the same breed again, somewhere else. So, well, I see the thought from Tommy, and he's got the money to do it. I don't think in practice it's going to get you just oh my God, I miss my dog so much, so I'm going to get the same exact dog now. I don't think it really works like that.
It'll look the same, but it'll have different habits. It'll have a different favorite spot, a different favorite treat, all that. So it's visually the same, but it's different. And there's just, there's so many dogs in shelters. Please adopt instead of going in the direction of cloning if you have the money. Storm, we've seen your dogs in the background, very well behaved, not barking on the stream like some other mutts that we have in the background. What do you think on this one, Storm?
I'm fresh off of a very expensive vet bill this morning, and Bond Vet told us, my girlfriend and I, that they initially thought we were an animal rescue based on how many dogs and cats we have, which I thought was kind of funny, because people make that joke all the time. And this weekend, I actually, for the second time, there's a really, really good documentary on Netflix called King of Clones, and it's about the Korean scientist that basically created this animal cloning process, and how like before that he basically tried to dabble in human cloning and was like super disgraced, and he had to move to, I think like UAE or Dubai, and then he started this animal cloning thing and it was a success. I just out of like sheer curiosity, I looked into it and the costs and stuff, and you quickly discovered that it's extremely inhumane. Like they make the mother dogs that carry these clones, like they have like all types of like miscarriages and have to do it a bunch of times. It just seems like an awful process, and Tom Brady is an awful human being, so it doesn't surprise me that he did this.
And Mike, finally to you on this one.
I have to agree with the Tom Brady point. Comes from a breeding ground of cheaters over where Knish is from, but I don't know. This is like the most rich person problem I've ever heard of. You know, like we cloned our dog and now it's not going to be quite the same. What happens when the dog does something slightly different than your other one? Isn't it going to be weird, like seeing your exact dog act differently? I don't know. It's going to end up being some kind of Xerox of a Xerox. You know, some weird dog that isn't like it isn't your dog and it's not a different dog. I would hate it.
All right. Yeah. I hope this doesn't catch on. I think this is just I don't even know all the negative things that Storm had brought up, which makes it even worse. Don't do this. You can adopt, and there are plenty of dogs that need adopting.
I don't think anybody really can do this except for maybe Tom Brady. There's very few people where this is an option.
But there are people out there who can do this, who are able to do this. There's a lot of rich people out there who could do this. And none of them are watching. But for all the people who can't do this anyways, don't do this, please. Last one we have on the chopping block today comes from Farley Bets, who started off a long tweet by saying, I need to make betting fun again. Talked about his previous successes in Circa Millions and talked about previous successes in sports. He's been consistently going out people of, I'll say, the sharper crowd on Twitter, saying that you don't need all this math and analytical data to make sports bets. He just basically bets purely off of ball knowledge, which we've contested on this show, and many people on the Sharp Side have contested is not a recipe for success. He's preached that it has been. This season, it definitely has not been. He says he's in the red for NBA, tennis, UFC, and NFL. My understanding is that the NFL is going extremely poorly for him this season. So he said it's time to make some changes. He wants to do different types of content. He wants to change the tone, needing to get back to enjoying the process. I don't know. To me, this is just like really big cope. Like he's not winning anymore. So now the focus is on like maybe the shift away from trying to find winning bets. It's going to be more like talking shop, just talking ball. It just seems like pretty big cope to me. What do you think, Mike?
This is classic. You're losing, so just go ahead and quit. Anyways, this is, if I'm losing, and coming from a poor loser myself, if I am ever losing in a game, I'll act like I don't care that much about how much we're playing this game. So It seems less important that I lost. This guy comes in and he's challenging everybody and saying, oh, you, blah, 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 you can bet off ball knowledge. Now that he's losing, actually, guys, it's all about having fun. Remember, it's not about the wins and losses. If you wanted the smoke, then take the smoke when you win and when you lose. I guess switching to more entertaining content is probably a good thing to do if you are a losing bettor. But like you said, it's a large amount of cope.
Knish, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm surprised the pizza man didn't take this one for himself here with his history of Farley Bets. But yeah, this is just a classic I was winning so much, but then, as soon as I went pro, everything's been downhill since. So we're going to change the strategy. And in really what I need to make betting fun again. People that really are buying your picks don't give a fuck about fun. They want to win. The winning is fun. No one's it's fun, but we to me, there's some element of, and maybe I'm biased here, but if you're going to watch one of the network content shows that we're doing, it's free, right? And you maybe get some entertainment out of that. then it's okay. But if you're selling a product to someone, they're not buying it like so it can be like, oh, I can have some fun here. It's like, no, I'm buying so the picks can be profitable. So yeah, I would agree with BB. Just a classic, like, I'm going to pretend like it does. It's going to be a fun time now, even though we're, down 100 units.
So, well, not 100, not quite 100 like some other people. But before I go to Storm on this one, I do want to say I wishing the best for somebody whose professional life has been shaken and has turned to sports betting to make up for the losses associated with that. But like, there is a responsibility on you when you are giving out picks and when you are doing sports betting content as well. Like, this is a tough industry to be involved in and to provide for other people. And like, I'm sorry, but like, again, there's responsibility there. And it seems like this is a pretty large rude awakening for him as well. Storm, finish us off. What are your thoughts on this?
First exposure to this guy, does he sell picks or is he just like content right now?
I'm pretty sure it's not pick selling.
Okay, because it says like
it is content that directly is based on giving out picks to people.
He's got, like, I looked at his profile quickly. He's got like formerly part of this company that looks like a info tout service. So maybe his ultimate goal is to try to launch his own thing at some point. It sounds like it from reading.
No, you do have to pay. Sorry, you do have to pay. I'm on his subject.
Oh, okay. So this is like a Bill Ackman tweet. Like, I can't even be bothered to read the entire thing. Just massive amounts of cope. Just, what are we even doing here? It sucks to like even give somebody like this attention. So we can just cut this one here.
Can I read his Substack bio real quick?
Please.
Award-winning professional sports bettor who utilizes psychosocial dynamics to find an edge.
Come on, what are we doing here?
I can't believe this is your first exposure.
Well
said. I haven't seen him before.
Well,
lucky you.
Well, that's a good way to end off the show. We talked a lot about sports betting. We talked a lot about the IQ of sports bettors, and maybe we provided some examples of the low IQ that maybe exists within sports betting as a whole. Lots of fun stuff on the show today. If you have any thoughts on anything we talked about, leave it in the comment section down below. While you're down there, great opportunity for you to smash that like button to support the show. Subscribe to the channel to help us on the road to 30,000 subs. We keep trying to make this channel bigger and better for you. That just allows us to make better content more often. Support what we do here, support our sponsors, and as always, we will see you again next time.